How's it going, everybody, and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. This is your host, Brian Funk. I make music as AfroDJMac, and today I'm very excited to talk to the founder of K Devices, Alessio Santini. How's it going, Alessio?
Hi, Brian. I'm fine, thanks. Thanks for this invitation.
I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're very busy doing a lot of work, so it does mean a lot that you would take a few minutes to sit down and talk with me about what you're doing. So thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so in case anyone doesn't know, K Devices is a company that creates, I'd say mostly Macs for live devices, right? But you do have some iOS offerings too?
Yes, absolutely. And more stuff will come.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good. Yeah, so maybe if you could just tell us a little bit about the company, how you got started, maybe even what got you into this world.
Sure. It's a long story, so
we got time.
Okay, great. Well, I have a background as musician. I played guitar from in the 90s. I'm quite old now. And actually, I started playing music in really extreme metal bands. I played in black metal and doom metal bands in the 90s in Italy.
Nice.
Because I'm Italian. At this time, I live in Italy. Then I met electronic music. It was, I don't know, starting in 2003, something like that. And I started work with Macs. I found Macs, I discovered Macs, and how often happens, and Macs totally absorbed my life for some time, because I started on my own. And step by step, I built a relationship with this software that it really changed my life. Because I work with it, and also my way to think. I think my forma mentis. I changed my way to approach to a problem, an issue, etc. So I spent a lot of time in these years, 2003, 2004. I was at university in Bologna at this time in Italy, and I was studying music, but not electronic music. And I spent a lot of time with this software. In this time, also Jitter, the Max library for the process of video came out. So I was really exciting, and I worked a lot with that. So I take my degree at the University of Bologna in musicology, and then since I was just discovered this world of Max, the electronic. I thought that it was important to keep studying this stuff. And at this time, now I hope it's changed, but at this time, at this university in Italy, Max was exotic, it was an odd thing that there was no way to keep studying this stuff. So I looked out of Italy, and I submitted for a master in Paris, in France. So I left Italy for a small period, I thought, at this time. And I go to Paris for studying electronic music and Macs, etc. It was a master in technology of arts. Mm-hmm. And this was a really important period for me, a time for me. I learned a lot of stuff during these years, because I studied with an Argentinian composer called Orazio Vagione, that it's the really pioneer of the granulation of sound. Actually, if you consider, for example, the seminal work of Curtis Rhodes, his book Microsound, it's a very important book. It's a PhD doctorate of Curtis Rhodes, directed by Orazio Vagione. So Orazio Vagione is really a god in granulation. And I was really shocked by these techniques because it's really working with the matter of the sound, its morphology. And you can take anything, and you can exploit the morphology of what you take, and you can transform really a lot of way. So I was really excited about that. I worked on I don't know how many max patch of granulation of sound. And at the same time, since I started working with jitter, and I started experimenting with real-time video. So I kept studying in Paris mainly granulation of sound and video processing, and then always in Paris, I worked on a project of the National Agency of Research in France about the new tools for the people that handle audio and video in theater. Okay, in theater. So we developed a software for a flexible handling of this kind of media. It was really important for me because I worked on a software, on building a software. So it was the first time that I worked in a team with that. And I think that this experience helped me a lot starting and today too, working with K devices. So this is my years in Paris. I worked a lot with this software, and I developed a lot of stuff for me. And at the same time, I stopped my compositional activity. I think maybe this is physiological for some people, but for me, it's really this. When you have a DAW, for example, a Cubase live, it's linear. Your work is linear. You have something, you go from left to right, fitting your note, your modulation, your automation, etc. And at this time, 18 years ago, so I was also young, I was lost with all this freedom that Max gave me. Look at this, this is cool. I spent a lot of hours in front of my computer listening stuff that it was exciting in his timbre, morphology, but that I was not able to handle, to give a structure to it. Mm-hmm. Also because I came from another kind of music too, so it was really strange for me, and I was not able to compose. So it was a great time for a point of view, but also I was a lot of frustration. I get a lot of frustration these years because I was not able to accomplish a musical structure that can look at and find me, you know. So I was a bit lost. And this is concerning my years in Paris. Then I did something unexpected. I don't know why.
That always happens, right?
With my yes, but this strange elements give me adrenaline. I like it. Breath is French. I decided with my wife to leave the city and to go live in the mountains. And I don't know why we won't change the experience, etc. So we go on the south of France on mountains, on Alps, and this was almost 10 years ago, and I still live here. So it's a choice that on one side it seems it was keep me far from my domain, no, from my electronic music studies and etc. So when I came here, I started with some work here in the country here, but it was not my element. And this is why I started. Max for Live just came out, and this is why I tried to start with something that in this remote area where electronic music really is not here. I tried to create something that let me work and live in this domain, and step by step it seems working. And there's a lot of work to do still. Mine is really a small company, but after some years we can say that our vision, designing tools, it find some users are happy with that, with this stuff. So here I am working again, and the happy ending is also that I need some time, but I'm composing again finally. So it was like a path that I have to do to come at the end, composing again. And I just some months ago in last November, I released my first EP, and from a while, the first that I released has a single, okay, not in a band, and I created with a friend a label that it's called Ellie Records. If someone want to check, it's ellie.media, the website, and we created this label where we promote composer that have a deep relationship with their software. So people that create their software, or people that have the can bend the software to serve their vision, and that's all until now. Yes.
Wow. So
I told you all the story.
yeah, well, like so many stories, it's a long, long, winding road.
Sure.
And
sure.
I guess
Absolutely.
many unexpected stops along the way.
Yes. Yes.
So you did kind of the opposite that most people do, where they usually come to the city, but you left and went into the mountains.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's odd. I think I'm really grateful to the city because I learned a lot in the city. And Paris, it's a great city to live in. And but at some time, I don't know. I'm happy. I go to the city sometime for work, for see, I don't know, some cultural events. But I'm happy here. I live in the middle of woods, and I work then when because when you work alone and you work, I'm happy with that. But when you work at home, and it also become sometimes difficult to take a real break from your work. So here I work for hours in front of my computer. Then I want a break. I get out with my dog and I hike on mountains and woods. It's really recharging me when I need. It's something that now I really fit this domain. Yes, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, honestly. I love to get outside, be in a little bit of nature. I'm on Long Island in New York, so I'm about an hour from the big city, New York City.
Yes.
And as amazing and incredible as New York City is, it's a lot. It's overwhelming, and and it never sleeps. It never slows down. So, I mean, I've never lived there, but I've spent a lot of time in there, and it's always kind of a relief for me to get out. Where other people love it, they want to stay there, but I'm like you. I like to take those breaks, get outside, and kind of relax, and clear my head a little bit.
I understand. I tell you that when I came here first days that I was here in this village, the night I get out my dog, and as musician, it was really talking me the silence that I found here. Also, if you stop working and say, okay, now I just listen, something should happen. But you get nothing, total silence, like it's in an anechoic chamber, I remember still today this charming that I felt in these first days here. It was really something that talked to me. Yes, it was cool.
Yeah, that's nice. And now you're getting back to making some music too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you said you released an EP in November, was it?
Yes, it's November. It's really a strange release for me. It was important because it was the first time, for a long time, that I can listen to something and to find me in this thing. I was trying to create something, but for me it also a really hard synthesis to do, because I came from a really deep relationship with the doom metal. I like this music still today. It's really something that for me is like I don't know, a medicine. Okay, when you hit the chord and you get a really powerful tone that persists, and it's like a little bit the people with synthesizers. It's like a drone. It's a drone. So it's I love to get lost in this timbre. On the other side, I really love granulation of sound, so microarticulation, etc. So it was really hard for me because on one side you have almost absence of structure, and the other side you have a hyper dense structure. Sorry. So I don't want to drop anything of this part of me, and so it was really a long path. At the end, I composed this EP that really, I think, I don't know, some people will love, some people would not love, but it's really something. There are a lot of guitars. It's almost all processor guitar. There are this big tone, and there are also granulation of sound, and I think it merged well together. So I listen to this stuff, I say, wow, this is me now at 40 years. And it makes me happy, really, deeply.
Yeah. You know what? I think if you can do that with your work, if you can make music that makes you happy, that's so important. And I think ultimately it will come out in the sound and reach people too. So yeah, I'd be very interested to hear it. We'll have to put that in the show notes to share with people. It's I think it's awesome that you come from this like doom metal background. I'm a guitar player too. That's
it's
like,
odd.
Yeah, it is. Like for a lot of electronic music, I think you don't really see that too much. And I come from the guitar player background too. Not quite doom metal, but rock and
yes.
It's I think it offers like an interesting perspective on how music is made. And I'm thinking now that I'm like kind of thinking about like some of the products you're putting out with K Devices, I can sort of see this influence because you've got a lot of things. I mean, especially like some of the newer stuff you're coming out with, the OOG sequencers off of the grid, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
This sort of like random human element that a lot of times is very hard to get inside of your electronic productions.
Yes. This is why I was really influenced by EDM years ago, and this is still something that I listen today. I'm really into this kind of music. And finally, the device that I release, and when I say for example, the OG tools are something that I worked on alone. But for the other devices, I work with a guy that called Simone Fabbri. That's it's really important person for K Devices. Now he have a brand of Aerorack synthesizers and called Frap Tools. So I say that because each device have a different kind of story. So if we talk about OG tools, it's really something that represent this kind of device that release that it was already in my background. So, for example, the OG tools, this engine come from the years when I was in Paris, that I created I don't know how many patch for time articulation, stuff like that. So, and at one time I thought that it was interesting to introduce this kind of time handling in a DAW, like live, for example. And this is why I created these tools, because I want to give people the chance to create in sync, because they work in sync, but with the freedom to go far from the sync concept humanly feel this. So for me, it was really an interesting experiment, also because they are odd tools. So I really don't know how this would be accepted by the users. But actually, I'm really happy to say that there's a lot of people that are using it and loving it. So there are 4 devices for now, and there are another device that will come, I don't know, maybe in fall or starting in 2019 Q1. I don't know. In some month, this will be the last of this series. Yes. And yes.
Yeah, because when you play with actual humans, there's always that unpredictable element. And
Sure.
for me, a lot of times that was the frustrating part. But I find myself now really missing that, just the fact that, one person could just decide to do something a little random, or the drummer can just decide to play a couple extra notes here and there. When you have your strictly loop-based music, it gets just so repetitive, and you realize that all of those little things, even if it's just one of your band members' mind wandering a little bit, it's part of what makes the song alive and part of what makes the music feel like it's worth listening to more than for 16 bars. So I think those collections are great for that.
Yes, you talk about playing with human and variation, sometimes error too. So it's really something that has been designed with this concept in mind, because when you play with in electronic, and a lot of people play alone in electronic music, you have a lot of elements that you can control, but that you have to control too. So I really love, also when I create some tool that I will not release it just for me, I really love to create tools that help you handling that, so giving rules that maybe after will be respected according to a variable. Okay, so it's something that can enrich your writing, and also can be inspiring, because on one side it go out of your control. If you use a random, you have, for example, a random element with a coefficient. You can control this coefficient, but you are controlling something that by itself will not do what you thought. So this is, I think, it's a nice element. And on the other side, since when you design a tool that you have to release to a lot of people, when I introduce instability, I think it's a good balance to give stability too. So, for example, if you take one of our last devices, let's call it Tatat, and this is a note generator. I call it unstable streams generator, and it's true, really unstable, because he have different variable for time resolution and for notes. So you get a stream of different notes, and each note can be at a different time resolution. It could be fine if you have the right sound, the drum, etc. But it can also go in a non-musical domain. So you have to give the user the way to control if he wants. So, for example, in this device, I really love it, because on one side you have the chance to record the live generated notes in a buffer. You set a length for a buffer, I don't know, 404, and the notes are fill a buffer, and the user can use a parameter to stop to record this buffer, to lock the buffer content, and to set a probability to listen, to play the buffer content or the the generated notes. So you have a way to introduce stability in these streams that you cannot really control. So this give really interesting results sometimes. And on the other side, really fixed element is that with the same length, you can export a live clip. So this is an instrument that you can also use as an inspiring tool. So, I love to say, you set a mood, okay, with the 4 notes, you set an interval, a scale, so a mood, and time, let's say, complexity. but you can also use it the old way. Okay, this is something that it's there to work according to the rules you gave to it, and then you export your clip 1, 2, 10, 20, and you have a lot of variation around the mood you set. So you are the master, and the device, let's say, works for you with a certain degree of freedom. And that's all. Yes, it's a sort of interaction you have with it.
Right. Yeah. You kind of give it some rules and a certain amount of freedom, and it's like, okay, go play.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That's the way I like to work a lot, actually, is to sort of set up something somewhat random, but, try to get like some rules and there's some limitations. And usually I'll let it kind of record just for a while and just let it go and then kind of find the parts that I like. What you've done in the latest series with like Tat Tat and Auto Trig is that you've kind of given the ability to say, oh, that's cool. Let's keep that part, but change it slightly every once in a while, which I think is really nice.
Yes.
And that's kind of the drummer in real life where you say, okay, here's the beat, right? Dun, dun, ch, dun, dun, ch. But of course, the drummer has to go dun, dun, ch, dun, 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 ch, every once in a while. And it's just that little kind of like here and there, a little extra, a little extra randomness without going too crazy that doesn't sound like music anymore.
Yes. It's really about to control this randomness, because wild random, it's not musical. For example, you talked about Auto Trig. Also is a different approach, if you want, from Tatat, because I wanted something that was multi-track, donc with a percussion vocation, if you want. Mm-hmm. And but we already have some nice working tools for that, like Autobeat. It's more like a sequencing style, no? You have your steps, and you set for each step velocity and chance to get these notes. This is cool, and but I wanted something different. And the nice but also challenging things with AutoTrig is that for people who know that don't know that AutoTrig it's an engine controlled by audio signal, so it's really strange as tool, because you can apply to the sequence concept the synthesis concept, like phase distortion, etc. So you have a master time, and all tracks follow this master time according to an exclusive ratio. Okay, you say the master time is 1/4, and then you have a track that it's 1/2, 2 time, 0.6 time. So you can also get relationship, not perfect relationship. So this is really fun with this device. When I was creating, developing, it's that it's really easy to get a groove, if you want, a first basic thing, okay? Mm-hmm. But from there, you cannot say, okay, I want to do this modification, okay? You cannot approach to AutoTrig with a beat in your head. For that, you have Autobeat and also the other sequencer. With AutoTrig, you can have a groove, and then you really have to let the guy do his work. It's really fun to tweak the parameters, and it works in a strange way. So you have some groove that emerge when you don't expect it, and you can reach really complex results also. And but it's really hard to master. To master, not to master, but to say to the device what you want. You also have to listen what the device gave you. Okay, so I think it was fine, because we have a lot of control and a lot of tools, and I was already released the tools that you control when you want. So when I was developing that, I thought it was really a different approach, and gave me great results. So I think it was a good idea to release it.
Yeah, so instead of you being kind of like the master, as you said in the last one, you're a little more like the rider. You're kind of riding on this this machine.
Sure.
And that's how I sort of saw it myself. I wasn't really like when I first approached it, I tried to get like a beat, just like a predictable beat, maybe whatever, something simple, basic. And I quickly realized, like, if I need to do that, I'll just program a MIDI clip, right? This is a little more fun to just kind of start seeing what happens.
Absolutely, this is important.
Things. Yeah, so I found it really nice for percussive elements. So not so much things like where a kick and a snare sort of need to hit in certain spots because they're really accenting the beat. I found it really nice for more percussive things that weren't quite as heavy as a kick and snare, and to just kind of dance around the beat that I already created. I found it really neat for that.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's sometimes like there's not a ton of tools for that kind of application. I think where like you said, you sort of give up the control a little bit here, and kind of you're more reacting to the device, I think, in this case, than the device reacting to you. So now, one of the things that I think is interesting that I don't completely understand yet, because I'm not in like the modular world yet, the Eurorack world, but you do have the ability to transfer this stuff into CV signals. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works?
Sure. This is for now just with AutoTrig. So AutoTrig is, as I said, a multi-track notes generator. You have 4 tracks, but it can trig up to 6 notes because there are 2 tracks with, let's say, a more complex velocity section, and the other 2 tracks they have static values for velocity, but each track can send with a chance factor the trig to one note to another note. So we have 6 notes at the end, and we already have created with Simone some devices that it's CV friendly, like X, for example. It's a modulator, and you can also enable the CV, and you get a gate and value to go out with audio. When I was working with AutoTrig, since it's multi-track, and when I start discovering the new features coming in Live 10, multi-channel, etc., I thought it was maybe interesting, since from user feedbacks we knew that this CV thing it's really appreciated, and I thought that was maybe interesting to let AutoTrig go audio too. So I wanted a way to do it that was really quick and friendly. So I created another device that it's called Mimus 6, and it comes for free with AutoTrig. And basically, when you see AutoTrig interface, you have at the end on the right, you have the notes. You have the notes, you set your notes. If in this track where you have AutoTrig, you load Mimus 6, and the 2 devices have a meeting, okay? AutoTrig know that Mimus 6 is there, so it changed its interface, it hide the MIDI notes, and it starts send the trigs, like audio signal, to this little device, Mimus 6. And Mimus 6 can handle this audio signal coming from AutoTrig and can route them, thanks to multi-channel of Live 10, to different audio channels. So for each track, and is receiving 6 tracks, you can get the trig and the velocity that you convert as a modulation signal. But the nice thing too, also, this was an idea of Simone, for example, we have a rich section in the gate part, because you can set the gate in a percentage from 10 to 90% of the original length that coming from AutoTrig. The notes have a length according to the time resolution. Okay, if I have a track that goes on 1/4, this will be the length of this note. So you can handle a gate, and you can move this, you can change this length. And there is a switch that you can also transform this gate in a simple trig signal if you want to use it with other kind of modules. So there's a lot of people out there now that it use modular Eurorack system, but also other kind of CV. And I repeat, I think it was good, a good idea to let these people to use the brain of Autotrig to run the modular analog system. That's the story.
Yeah, I can see like when you look at the two devices side by side, the horizontal lines that talk about each track, each note that's being outputted connects right into the next device. This Mimu 6, where it shows you like, okay, this is where I'm getting the information from, which looks really nice. Yeah, I'm not big into the modular world yet. The most I've done with like any kind of CV gate and that sort of stuff is really just with like my Arturia key step. I've got the what is it, the MS-20 that has some like inputs for that too, which is, it's fun, but I'm just, for me personally, I know where this is going to lead me, and it's going to lead me in the poorhouse, and I'm going to be out of I'm going to have a lot of modules and no dinner.
Sure. But I have to say that for what concerns modular world, for me the reference is Simone, because it's really into it, and by the way it creates really good products. But as user, as composer, I have to say that I'm not really, maybe I do not have to say that, but I'm not really into synthesis. We have a synthesizers called it Terra, that I love it. But in my composition activity, I'm more on sampling and sample processing. Right. I'm really not too strong with synthesis, and consequently, I have a really small Eurorack system. I have fun with it, but personally, as user, I do not risk to go having a giant system, because really I'm laptop guy, and with all this cable and port and a lot, and I know that people loves that. For me, it's really not the heaven, I go really quickly lost with all this cable. I prefer my spaghetti patch in Max. It's a point of view. It's an approach. I think that out there there's company and models that are really crazy and really good stuff. But I'm not this kind of user or this kind of musician.
I think I'm kind of with you on that. Maybe it's the guitar player in us somewhere, where I never really thought about music as in like sequences. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like 16 notes that keep repeating, and therefore like the kinds of music I was making wasn't really very loop based. So I think like that's just a little bit distant from where I go with my sounds, though. I mean, as I've gotten deeper and deeper in electronic music and synthesis, those elements start creeping in a little bit. But yeah, it's a. I have a feeling one day I'll get in there, but I might have to make a little bit of money first.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about step sequencer, I feel a little bit the same. But finally, also these OG tools came out from this, because I respect all approach to music. But for me, it was a bit annoying, this system of the steps, each steps the same length. I know there's variables, but the main design is always the same. And I was a little bit tired of this. And this is also what drove me to design this kind of tools. And if I can say, you talk about tools that shape, if you want, the compositional thought, okay, like a step sequencer that I don't know, in 20 years make people compose a lot of boring stuff, a lot of great stuff too. So when I personally a little bit bored by the step, etc. Concept, the step concept, I thought to create these OG tools, and this it's also interesting because something that I do not told you already about OG tools. It's this concern all our devices. That for me, it's really a sort of meta-compositional activity, because giving a musician a tool to let him do its music, and it's like a sort of pre-composition, okay? This is really exciting for me. I create a tool, I give some limits, I give some possibilities, and the user, the exciting part is also the user can really force the instrument, it can bend my instrument, it can to his vision. But for me, it's like to give something to reach a musical goal, if you want. So on one side, it's really a way to it's like a sort of composition. I compose a tool for the composition. So I give some people the chance to do something. For example, I'm not alone, of course, but for example, with the OG tools, I give the people the chance the musician, the chance to go far from this concept of sync, all staying in the safety of sync with the transport, if you want. So it's really something that it's exciting to create this kind of things, I think.
Yeah, I think that the type of instrument you play, whether it's a sequencer, whether it's a guitar, a piano, whether it's the piano roll, whether it's a push, you name it, it really does influence and have an impact on the type of music you write. And I find myself often going back and forth, and sometimes I'll think like, okay, so for instance, I got really excited when Push first came out because it was laid out much like a guitar. The intervals look a lot like guitar strings to me. So I'm not a keyboard player really, though I'll fool around and come up with things, but I was so excited for this new way to interact with all my synthesizers. But it wasn't too long after that I realized I was playing differently now. I was using synthesizers in a different way. And it's sort of like, even though it gave me a new alternative that I felt a little more comfortable with, it made me appreciate having a keyboard, for instance, because I was coming up with different things on a keyboard than I would on Push. And
yes,
and Push, although it's similar to guitar, I play it totally different at the same time. So different things come out of me when I play guitar, and it's just a really cool thing that we have all these choices to input musical ideas into our songs. And it's really fascinating to me how the final product is so heavily influenced on the tools that we use to come up with it.
Yes, you have an interactive relationship with your tools also when they are controllers, because they shape also your physical approach to a musical gesture, if you want. No, so I think this is the right approach. You have your knowledge, but each time you adopt a new controller, a new interface, this give you something that it change everything. Also, when you came back to your guitar, maybe. For me, for example, I always say that the chance that they have with Max to create my tools, it deeply changed the way I play my guitar, and this is it. It's the healthy way to improve a workflow. I think each part gives something, and you have a composite relationship with all your tools.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the iOS app that you have. This is Shaper, which
yes.
I think is great, by the way. I love the way you can reorganize it. It's a multi-effects unit, basically, for anyone that's not familiar with it. It has a whole bunch of different effects from, what do you got, like distortions and, well, I'll let you tell me about it a little bit.
Yes, Shaper, it's a pilot project, if you want. It's our first step in the iOS land, and it's called Shaper because it's a wave shaper with a different function for wave shaping. But it's more than that. You have also different section to process sound. You have a resonator, what we call a glitch gate, that it's a really harsh threshold that cut out sound according to a threshold, exactly. And you have a transform section where you can warp, fold, and clip the waveform. And the right thing about this little app is that you can change the order of the modules. So you can really reach different kind of results, from the total destruction of sound to digitalization of sound. But you can also go gently with Shaper. It's really not its main goal, but you can user can get a really nice result. And it was, as I said, our first step, and it was an experiment that it's going well. And in fact, we are working on several other effects that we'll bring on iOS in the coming months. And it reflects a little our plan about what will be this first phase of approaching iOS. We'll release a series of effects that can be simple or more complex, but pretty straightforward effects, because we want to create a group of effects that can be interesting for different kind of musicians that use iOS for composition. And how can I say? What we want to do, there's a lot of great app that let you compose your pattern, your lines, great synthesizer, etc. For us, this is a phase of approaching, and we want to create, I call it bricks. I mean, we do not want to do the revolution with iOS. We want to step in iOS, giving some tools that can fit a different kind of workflow. We will try to, we'll come soon with a series of effects that are really clear DSP purpose, this kind of effect, another effect, but with a little bit of twist that fit our brand identity. And that's it. We're working on 3 new effects, and that with Shaper we create this first wave or app for iOS from key devices. Then we'll see. But for now, we are focusing on effects, something simple to use. This is the philosophy for now.
I like that, because I kind of long for some nice effects for iOS to insert in between different devices. I know you got it for audio bus. I particularly like using the iOS effects within Live using Studio Mux. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's, you know, that app where it'll
Yes.
You know?
Yes, I know it. Yes.
Studio Mux, yeah, it's really cool because it lets you use it almost like a plugin within your set.
Yes.
And Shaper's nice because it's got a bunch of different effects, and you know, like the guitar player in me likes to switch around the order of his pedals. You can easily switch around the order of these different effects within Shaper, which is pretty nice. Right. Yes.
It's getting. We are getting nice feedbacks. Now we will come soon with an update that will improve the user interface in the audio unit version. We'll bring the menu for the selection and to save presets also in the audio unit interface, and other little tools that will improve the app globally. Yes.
So, yes. How does programming for iOS compare to programming in Macs? What are there different challenges?
Well, yes, it's different because basically, well, on Shaper, I work with Simone, and I'm a guy that work, I think, well with Macs, but I'm not a coder. I'm really other kind of studies. So things maybe will change in the future, but I'm quite old. I want to keep learning, but I don't know if I can become really a really strong coder. So basically, developing a shape, I call it a pilot project because we experimented a new kind of development for our experience, of course. So, and in Max, now you have an environment called Gen. And if you create your DSP process in Gen, then you can export your patch as code. So the DSP part of the plugin, that the future app, can be created in Max and then exported as code. On the other side, you have the user interface. And we use a software that lets you design your user interface. This software, it's called Paint Code. It lets you design your user interface, and again, it lets you export some code. So you have code for the user interface, you have the code for the DSP. But the truth is that Simone and me, currently, we cannot merge these two big dots under the iOS development environment. So we are working with a guy, a really nice guy, that cover this part where we are, that miss in our skills. So it's a different way to work if you want, but not so different because the project still start in Max, still is developed in Max. Then we need this guy that do the last part and deliver the final app. For the future product, we are working at the same time we are studying and we are learning and we are working with developers that work with us. We think we will work in Juice to have the chance to export iOS apps, but we are considering also the possibility to release Audio Unit and VS3 plugins. So to answer to your question, it's different, but not so different. Finally, yes, we just need another person with us that can cover. I was joking, saying I'm too old, etc. But it's not really this. I think that each one have to do well what he can do well. So I do well my work in Max. Same for Simone. We can. Then, if there's a guy that it's nice that I work well with, and it's can do well the jobs that I cannot do now, I prefer to create a team and to work in team because it's also healthy for exchanging ideas, for sharing ideas, point of view,
right.
And it's like when I talked about the creation of the patch. More than that, when you work with other humans. There's an interaction, the product change. It's enriching for all the people that are in the project. Finally,
well, it's probably important for you to make sure you interact with other humans now that you're living up in the mountains, right?
Yes. I'm really looking for that. Yes.
That's
you're
a good
right.
point,
you're
though.
right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Well, I do know that, working at home sometimes can get lonely. You're not going to the office and interacting with your colleagues all the time. As much as people complain about that, it's still a social aspect, which is nice.
Sure.
I think you're right. It's a smart idea to kind of know your strength, and this is your strength. You're in Max. And sure, I'm sure you could learn how to code within iOS and, whatever you want. But sometimes we have to make decisions. And I think if you were to try to take it all on yourself, then your last EP might be the last one you ever release. You'll never get to make any music again.
Yes.
It's very tempting to try to learn how to do everything. But I think that's a good point you make, that to know your strength and rely on others.
Yes, use a dread word. It's tempting. It's tempting. This is true. But on the other side, yes, you have to fit your place. Finally, my place is to work well with Max, have ideas for start a project or for reach ideas from others, and I like this way to work. Finally, so and you also say right when yes. Sure, when I leave, I have human exchanges, of course, but not concerning audio domain. So this is really something that maybe I miss and I appreciate to have with other people in working, for example. Yes, yes. It's really it's true what you say. Yes.
Yeah, it has like things like the internet has afforded us a lot of ability to work remotely and to do things in interesting ways and collaborate with people from all over the world. But
Absolutely.
sometimes, yeah, that one-on-one, interaction. And it's kind of funny, like it wasn't, I don't know, maybe it was like a couple months back, buddy of mine and I were getting together and we were just playing acoustic guitars together. And, that's how I did everything in the old days when I was learning. And it's been so long since I've had those types of, musical interactions. It was just so nice. It was, there was no setup. It was like, all right, you in tune? Yep. Okay, let's go.
Cool.
And there was no connecting. There was no, why isn't this working? Hold on, let me get us, we're not synced. There was none of that. And it was just really nice. I mean, of course, I love the complexity of what we can do now, but sometimes just that stripped down approach is great.
Yes. Luca, I totally share your thought here. The same, I cannot forget, for example, the feeling that I have about, I don't know, it's 20 years ago now, when I was playing in heavy metal bands, etc. And I remember during the rehearsal, it was really, it's really a great feeling because I was part of a bigger machine, a machine bigger than me. Each musician was a part of this machine, and this machine was working well. You are part of something that there's a lot of exchange, and it's good. And of course, I love to play with my music with computer, etc. On one side, we have a lot of more possibilities, but also something is missing now. No? And we have always to keep an eye on both sides of the question. I think for me, this is my way to be. I'm never fit totally one path. I always still keep an eye on the other side when I come from, etc. So yes, I can understand what you're saying. You are your body playing acoustic instruments. It's also because all the chance that we have today with this informatic medium demand a lot of mediation, metabolization, and this is good. But on the other side, I think again, there's a kind of energy that it's broken when you go in this kind of approach to composition. On one side, you have more less complexity, but more feelings. Maybe maybe it's banal. I don't know, but I feel the same way. I have to say that. Yes, yes. Me too. For example, I like to create. I don't know, strange patterns, something that it's out of grid. But on the other side, considering my background, etc., I go in front of my amp with guitar, boom, I play a chord, and I stay. And it's really feed me.
Yeah.
Yes, it's another kind of things. It's another things, another thing.
There are few satisfactions as great as turning up the amp and just playing a nice big chord on your guitar and just feeling it in your body and rattling the room.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, listen, it's been really great talking to you. I've love hearing about your work. I've always been a fan. I've always enjoyed your approach, especially this kind of like a little bit loose, not always completely predictable thing that you have in a lot of your devices. I think that's great, and kind of
Thanks.
it helps inject that life that I think we're kind of talking about here that you sort of miss sometimes. And yeah, I
Yes.
think it's all great work. I'm excited to hear that you got some more stuff coming out for iOS sometime down the line.
Yes, there's a lot of stuff coming out. We have really a lot of projects we are working on.
Yeah.
On Botmax for Live, other platform too. So yes, there will be a lot of products during the next 12 months. Yes.
Cool. So for anyone listening, if you want to check some of this stuff out, you can head over to k-devices.com and you can see all the nice work there. Lots of really cool stuff to, like we've been saying, to inject some life into your music and some experimentation sometimes and sometimes some chaos. And, you know, there's quite a few tools there that will enrich your music. Is there anything you want to say before we go or ask of the audience?
No, Brian, I think we had a lot of different topics, really interesting to talk with you. And I thank you again for this chance. What is really, really nice talks. And no, I have nothing to add. It was cool. Thanks.
All right, great. All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much for listening. Again, head over to k-devices.com. This has been my talk with Alessio Santini. Thank you very much, Alessio, and thank you everyone for listening. Take care.
Thanks, Brian.